Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a very big deal because the show got stuck somewhere in between being iconic in pop culture and almost entirely forgotten because it hung around for 30 seasons, but most people don't remember any of that. If you were a 90s kid watching it when it was at its peak, which was basically when the show dropped, you remember the 5 original Rangers, you probably remember Tommy and Kimberly, you might remember that there was a Power Rangers movie, which was, kind of mid at best, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And beyond that, you even remember names like Zordon, Alpha, and Rita Repulsa. But at the end of the day, most people who remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers could barely tell you about the plot. When I say the plot, I don't mean the whole, monster of the day, go get the Zord, blast the monster, and head over to the juice bar to sip on something. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about the actual plot of the story. Because there was one. And you kind of have to travel past Mighty Morphin Power Rangers just a little bit, like 2-3 more seasons down, to actually see how that plot ends. And now that my analytical mind went all the way back to the beginning, because I wanted to know, what was I watching as a child? I've come to find out that the plot is actually pretty interesting. But more importantly, there's a hidden message behind all of it that almost nobody was paying attention to. So this is my attempt to break it all down. The real story behind Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or more importantly, where did they steal it from to begin with? Because once you see the hidden message, you won't be able to unsee it. Now, there are a whole bunch of channels on this platform, which I enjoy, that talk about the history of Power Rangers. Linkara did a whole History of Power Rangers series, like hours upon hours, breaking down all 30 seasons. So if you really want to know about that stuff, like go all the way in depth, go over there. But at the end of the day, Power Rangers is a Japanese show that got brought over to America. So they're splitting the footage between the fight scenes, which are Japanese, and American footage shot with the actors where, they're not morphed. Like they're just, having conversations and talking about, it's morphin' time. But when they morph, it ain't them. It's some other actors over in Japan. That said, if you need a quick refresher on the plot, here it is. The show starts with a space sorcerer named Rita Repulsa, who is on the moon. Somebody accidentally uncovers this vault or this, crate that she's stuck in. She emerges and decides that she is going to conquer Earth because, she's evil, and she got it like that. So she sets out to go to Earth with her and her minions, and Zordon, who is apparently good, decides that he was going to defend the Earth. So he goes out to find 5 teenagers with attitude. You gotta remember the attitude part. Those 5 teenagers are commissioned to be the Power Rangers. At first, they were a little sketchy about it, but they basically realized, oh snap, we can morph, and they're over it. Like, they're in. They are the Power Rangers. And on the surface, just about every episode looks about the same. Rita Repulsa launches some attack on Earth, which requires her to go get a monster and send them to, not even just Earth, specifically Angel Grove, to where the Power Rangers hang out. And the Power Rangers fight this monster because, the monster is evil. And eventually, they beat the monster, or maybe it takes 2 episodes to take him out. And they get some Zords, like these big robot-looking things, to help them take out the monster as well. And they get on back to their lives until the next monster comes, and Rita continues on with her plan. But that is just the baseline, because I'm pretty sure the show really took off when the Green Ranger first shows up. They eventually did, in the first season, a 5-part series. 5 parts, where Rita Repulsa goes out and gets a teenager of her own, puts him under an evil spell, and he becomes the evil Green Ranger. He fights the 5 Rangers, like the original ones that we had, and he's pretty good at it, because him by himself is almost enough to take them out. But after all of these episodes play out, they break the spell over him. He becomes good. He joins the 5 heroes and even fights against Rita. Now that's short-lived because he eventually loses his powers because they were always supposed to be temporary. And a few more episodes go by, filler episodes, and then he comes back commissioned as a brand new White Ranger. Shout out to Zordon. To be real with you, a whole bunch of stuff happens for the next 2 seasons while they're still called the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But none of it is all that important. They swap out like 4 of the 5 original Rangers. The White Ranger, Tommy, formerly Green, he now becomes the new leader of the team. And then Rita Repulsa, who is the space sorcerer, she teams up with Lord Zed, who calls himself the Emperor of Evil. Yeah, that happens. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. I'm Ezra Garnett, and I am just a man who has realized that if the Word of God is actually true, then I've got a whole lot of repenting to do. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, Just let me know in the comment section because I do try to read them all. And the Rangers keep on fighting monster attacks every single step of the way. But ultimately, if you're actually paying attention to the plot, they fail. The command center gets destroyed. They lose their powers, like their Mighty Morphin Power to be Rangers. And they actually got to go get new power, which is why they come back with a new season called Power Rangers Zeo. Now, skipping over a whole bunch of stuff, a new villain named King Mondo shows up, and then him and his team overtake the old villains. So the Zeo Rangers fight against them, only for that season to play out. Again, a whole bunch of things happen, but none of it's all that important because a new villain shows up again, and that one takes over because King Mondo is gone, Rita Repulsa and, Lord Zed, all of them pushed to the side. So now that villain, Divatox, she's now the new evil person, and the Power Rangers level up again to now be the Turbo Rangers. They continue the process of progressively swapping out actors, therefore, reworking the plot to get new Rangers, and all of it comes to a climax when you get to Power Rangers in space, because they chase one of the villains into outer space, gets overtaken by another villain, and they duke it out for an entire season, only to finally get to the end of the story. And the end of the story is that they finally win. They beat evil. Like, we did 6 seasons by now. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Zeo, Turbo, then finally in space. And evil is taken out. But you gotta see how they do it, because it's not the Power Rangers who actually win. It's Zordon. Remember the guy, like the floating head in a tube, who gave them the power to begin with? He just sacrifices himself. That's what he does. And because he allows himself to be sacrificed, with the help of the Red Ranger and Power Rangers in space, like a tube event, like a whole bunch of energy is released into the atmosphere, and all of the evil is overcome. That is the story of Power Rangers. And if you're wondering how that plot eventually became 30 seasons, I ain't got time to get into it. All that matters is that the show was technically supposed to be canceled after Power Rangers in space. So the plot ends under the pretense the show was never going to come back. But then it did. They just kept coming up with a whole bunch of spinoffs, and the plot goes in a bunch of crazy directions from there in order to make 30 seasons actually stick. So there we go. And anybody who is a real Power Rangers fan basically agrees that Power Rangers in Space was not only the most important season, because it almost got canceled, but arguably the best that they've ever done. But all of this, the entire Power Rangers story, only works because they stole it. And now I'm going to tell you where they got it from. Because I am a Christian who actually reads my Bible, I know what the gospel narrative actually is. So, if you compare that to what they actually gave you in Power Rangers, like the actual plot, not just the battling the monsters on a specific day, but the full plot from the beginning all the way to the end of In Space, you should see the carryover very easily. Just consider that Zordon is an immaterial being. That's who he is. He represents goodness. But you also have to understand that he's commissioning the Power Rangers, like giving them power that they walk around with on the inside of them, something they can morph into. It doesn't come from them, it comes from somewhere else. That power is in opposition to something. Throughout the entire show, they're very open that they are fighting against evil. Evil comes in different forms, but it comes as a sorcerer, it comes as an emperor of evil, it comes as demons, it comes as monsters. If you make it to Power Rangers in Space, there's an even bigger evil entity who's like over everything called Dark Spectre. You even have, space pirates, all of it. At the end of the day, everything I just said clearly aligns with what we would consider to be evil from a Christian framework. Things that are fully aligned with the forces of darkness and in opposition to the light. Remember, Dark Spectre. It's in the name. And although they never actually say it, Zordon himself is this immaterial being who can give power to the Rangers themselves. He shares some similarity with the Christian God. I didn't say it's exactly the same, but there's similarity. But you have to see where it's going from here, because the Power Rangers aren't just superheroes. They are legitimately fighting against the forces of evil. Not just random crime in a city. The forces of evil that want to destroy all of Earth. It's like in the first lines of the show. I'm going to conquer Earth. It's time to conquer Earth. That's what Rita Repulsa says. If you know the scriptures and go to John 10:10, which is square in the center of the Gospels, Jesus says himself that the thief, in this case referring to, Satan or the accuser of the brethren, he comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. Pretty clear that Rita Repulsa, all of them, working under, I guess when you travel all the way up the line, you get the Dark Spectre. They are there to steal, kill, and destroy. That's all they do. They are evil through and through. There's nothing that's really, shifting or positive about them. And the Power Rangers keep fighting them every step of the way, because the time to fight evil is always right now. Simply put, what it means to be a Power Ranger is to use your power in opposition to manifestations of evil. They're even told not to escalate a battle unless the opposition does so or does something that gives them a reason to. They can't just morph and go do powerful things because they feel like it. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a code of ethics that keeps selfishness out of it. And for the record, Christians do believe that they have access to power that is inside of them. It comes from the Holy Spirit. Like when you receive Christ, you have access to this power. It doesn't come from you, it comes from outside of you. And that power is specifically to overcome sin. Anything that is evil and against God. And even with all that power, it's morphin time. Every time that happens, the Power Rangers are still incredibly limited in their humanity. And that is why they continue to fail. The command center is literally destroyed twice. They keep on having to go out to get more power, because the one they have isn't enough. And when they finally beat evil, they can't do it by themselves. It only happens, evil is only destroyed or put at bay, is because Zordon, the same one who gave them the power in the beginning, sacrifices himself. And if you know anything about Christianity, the reason how the faith got its name is because Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. When he goes to the cross, the historical moment of the cross and the crucifixion, he is sacrificing himself so that we can have life and have it more abundantly. In the context of Power Rangers, every single time that a new monster shows up, it's basically a game of whack-a-mole. Yes, they might beat that monster for the day, but one thing is for certain, another new monster is showing up. So when I say the Power Rangers failed, what I mean is that they actually kept failing, or at least that they never actually won. The victory was won not by them. And in Christianity, even though we may pursue righteousness, that's what Christians may do, the victory over sin is not by human beings themselves. It's by Jesus Christ, who is God in the flesh. That's another conversation about the Trinity that we don't have to get into right now. That is what we believe, and it's at the core of what you see in Power Rangers. The biggest shift in what you get in the show is that there's no clear expression of a god. Zordon exists, and he's a godlike figure, but he's not expressed as a god. You see what I'm saying? We don't necessarily see God putting on human flesh or anything of that nature. But we do see this entity that represents goodness, that has power, that gives power to the Power Rangers themselves. That's how they go from just being teenagers with attitude to actually doing something of value. And the power he gives them isn't enough for them to get it done. He has to do it himself, because humanity was unable to save itself, just like the gospel narrative. To clarify, Power Rangers was an iconic superhero show where the heroes that they gave us were never really able to actually save anybody. Yes, they could push back the forces of darkness, the forces of evil, but they couldn't really save anyone. That part had to happen by Zordon, the same one who gave them the power to begin with. I am not saying this is a perfect parallel to the gospel message. I am aware there is a lot more to the gospel, and there's even a whole bunch more to Power Rangers. I ain't got time to get through all the details. Like I said, most of it isn't all that important if you care about the big meta-narrative that is the plot. But the facts are the facts, because Power Rangers did become a pop culture icon. And at the end of the day, they had to steal from the Bible in order to make it all work. And if you actually watch the show from start to finish, then the truth was sitting right there in plain sight the entire time. If you actually made it all the way to the end of this video, I do have to admit that thank you doesn't do it justice anymore, because you are a real one. And I'm always here to have the real conversations, no matter how hard those conversations actually are to have. And if you want more from me beyond this video, it does mean a tremendous amount if you would please like and subscribe.